Breaking news. In a shocking twist, First Lady Melania Trump has stepped into the political battlefield and instantly set off a firestorm. During a highly publicized event meant to promote unity, Melania stunned the audience by launching a verbal attack on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. With cameras rolling, she declared in her heavy, deliberate tone, "You are a disgrace to this nation. You do not deserve to live here." The room fell silent. Reporters froze, unsure if they had heard correctly, but the words were crystal clear. An unambiguous insult aimed directly at Crockett, who sat only a few rows away. Within seconds, social media lit up like wildfire. Hashtags like #disgrace to the nation and #Melania versus Crockett dominated Twitter. Clips of the moment racked up millions of views on TikTok, with users adding captions like, "Did she really just say that?" For many, the moment was shocking, not only because of the venom in Melania's words, but because it marked a rare departure from her usual silence. Known for avoiding political mudslinging, she had suddenly become the loudest voice in the room. But her attempt to defend her husband, Donald Trump, immediately backfired. Critics accused her of arrogance, cruelty, and ignorance of democratic values. One commentator on MSNBC declared, "For a First Lady to say a member of Congress does not deserve to live in this country, that's not just offensive. That's un-American." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett remained composed. Cameras caught her adjusting her microphone, taking notes, and glancing calmly at the First Lady. Her silence in that moment said more than words. She was preparing to respond, and everyone knew it would be brutal. The First Lady's outburst was intended as a show of strength, but in that instant, it looked more like desperation. And as analysts would soon point out, Melania Trump had just made the biggest mistake of her public life. The silence didn't last long. As the audience murmured in disbelief, Jasmine Crockett leaned into her microphone, her expression sharp but steady. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the kind of calm fury that slices deeper than shouting ever could. "Melania," she began, her words measured but laced with steel, "you can call me a disgrace to this nation, but the real disgrace is standing right next to you in the White House. The man you defend has lied, bullied, and dragged America down, and you enabled it with your silence." The crowd erupted. Some gasped, others cheered, and journalists scrambled to jot down her exact phrasing. Crockett didn't pause. She doubled down. "You say I don't deserve to live here? Well, I was elected by the people of this country. I serve them every day. Unlike you, I wasn't handed a platform because of who I married. I earned it, I fight for it, and I will not be silenced by a woman who only speaks when it's to shield a bully." The room broke into applause, echoing through the hall as Melania's composed exterior faltered for a split second. Cameras caught her lips tightening, her hands clenching the edge of the podium. Crockett's retort had landed harder than anyone expected. Online, the response was immediate. Hashtags flipped, #Crockett clapback, #not a silence, and #Melania mistake surged across social media. TikTok edits replayed Crockett's words over triumphant music, while Twitter exploded with praise. "This is how you handle arrogance," wrote one user. Others mocked Melania's attack with memes comparing her words to hollow threats. Commentators were quick to weigh in. CNN's headline read, "Crockett strikes back, a First Lady out of line." Meanwhile, MSNBC called it the comeback of the year. Even conservative pundits struggled to defend Melania, some admitting her remarks had been a disastrous miscalculation. By the time Crockett finished, the narrative had already shifted. What began as Melania's attempt to humiliate her husband's critic had transformed into a national moment of defiance, one that elevated Jasmine Crockett from target to victor. By the next morning, the confrontation between Melania Trump and Jasmine Crockett dominated every news cycle in America. The clip of Melania declaring Crockett a disgrace to the nation ran on repeat across all major networks. But more powerful still was the viral clip of Crockett's response, where she calmly dismantled the First Lady in front of a live audience. CNN's headline blared, "From silence to scandal, Melania's worst mistake yet." MSNBC branded it Crockett's defining moment, while The Washington Post published an op-ed titled, "A First Lady's Words That Will Haunt the Trumps." Even Fox News, usually a safe space for the Trumps, struggled to spin the fallout, with one panelist reluctantly admitting it was not her finest hour. On social media, the narrative was even harsher. Hashtags like hashtag Melania Mistake, hashtag Disgracegate, and hashtag Crockett Wins trended worldwide. TikTok creators set Crockett's clap back to dramatic background music, racking up millions of views within hours. Memes flooded Twitter and Instagram, portraying Melania as out of touch, desperately trying to defend a crumbling empire. One viral post read, "She finally speaks and this is what she says?" Epic fail. Late-night comedians pounced on the moment. Jimmy Kimmel joked, "Melania called Jasmine a disgrace to the nation," which is ironic considering the man she sleeps next to every night. Stephen Colbert's audience roared when he replayed Crockett's retort, calling it the most satisfying political takedown of the year. Political analysts dissected the deeper implications. Many argued that Melania's rare public outburst had shattered her carefully curated image as the detached, stoic First Lady. "She chose the wrong moment and the wrong opponent," one strategist said. "Crockett thrives on these battles. Melania walked straight into her trap." The backlash wasn't confined to media and Twitter. Protests broke out in several cities, with demonstrators carrying signs that read, "Disgrace is at the White House, not in Congress." Meanwhile, Crockett's campaign donations spiked dramatically, with small-dollar contributions pouring in from supporters who said they were inspired by her defiance. Melania had tried to silence a critic. Instead, she amplified her voice louder than ever before. The fallout from Melania Trump's attack on Jasmine Crockett didn't fade with the passing news cycle. It grew louder. What began as a single insult has now cemented itself as one of the most talked-about political scandals of the year. Within days, editorial boards declared the incident a turning point. The New York Times wrote, "Melania Trump shattered her own image in 30 seconds. The Guardian described it as a desperate miscalculation that backfired spectacularly. Meanwhile, conservative outlets struggled to frame her comments as strength. Some tried to spin it as a moment of honesty, but their defenses were drowned out by the avalanche of public criticism. Pollsters confirmed the damage. A national survey revealed that 62% of respondents viewed Melania's remarks as inappropriate or unacceptable, while Jasmine Crockett's favorability surged by double digits, particularly among younger voters and independents. Analysts concluded that Crockett had transformed from target to symbol, a woman who stood up to both Trump and his wife and came out stronger. Crockett, for her part, embraced the spotlight. In interviews, she repeated her now iconic line, "I wasn't handed my position because of who I married. I earned it." That soundbite was replayed endlessly, turning her into a viral figure well beyond Washington. Supporters began selling T-shirts and posters featuring her words, and campaign donations surged to record highs. Melania, however, vanished from the public eye. After the disastrous appearance, she canceled scheduled interviews, and avoided cameras. Insiders whispered that her advisors urged her to retreat, fearing further missteps. The image of the silent, graceful First Lady had been replaced with one of arrogance and hostility, and repairing that damage seemed nearly impossible. For Donald Trump, the scandal only deepened his problems. Critics argued that the incident showed the chaos surrounding his leadership extended to his household. Even allies privately admitted that Melania's intervention had been a disaster. One Republican strategist summed it up bluntly: "She tried to help him, and she made everything worse." Historians are already marking the clash as a defining cultural moment. Not because of what Melania said, but because of what it revealed: that words still matter, and that even the most carefully controlled figures can destroy their reputations in a single sentence. In the end, Melania Trump had hoped to silence Jasmine Crockett. Instead, she amplified her voice, gave her a national platform, and etched her own biggest mistake into the political record books.